Boris Johnson has insisted nobody told him having a drinks party at Downing Street risked breaking lockdown rules, despite claims he'd been warned at the time.
Joining us now is the Minister for the Armed Forces, James Heappey, and very good morning to you at a time when we are hearing very worrying warnings about what is happening in Ukraine. At a time, as Charlotte has just been reporting, when we're seeing the cost of living crisis getting worse for people, we have this massive distraction, and it's caused by the Prime Minister, who appears not to know what his own rules were. Why does he not know what everybody else in the country got lectured on every day for 2 years?
Well, I think he does, but I think that the point that he made the other day at the dispatch box is that he was taken down to an event and as he, on reflection, in hindsight, he realised he should have shut it down there and then, but he didn't, and he's apologised profusely for having not done so. But I, having worked in Number 10 as his parliamentary private secretary, can see how that happened. The Prime Minister's diary is like no other. It is extraordinarily busy. It's put together in 5-minute blocks, and he will bounce from phone calls with foreign leaders to national security meetings, to meetings on domestic policy, to meetings with advisors on COVID. And then someone comes and grabs him and takes him out of his study and briefs him in the 30 seconds whilst he's walking down the stairs on what he's going into next. Now, millions of your viewers will hear that and say, yeah, thanks, but not buying it. All I ask them is that they just wait for Sue Gray's report to come out, see what she says.
Why does he get special dispensation? He was literally the person who stood at the lectern and said, follow the rules. You're not allowed to gather. You're supposed to be at home. We were all in lockdown. Remember, this is at the height of lockdown. You could meet one person outside. But you're saying because he was particularly busy and because other people manoeuvred him around and organised his diary, he can be forgiven for not knowing the rules are. As you said yourself, no one's going to buy it.
No, Suzanne, I'm not for a second saying that he didn't know the rules. I am suggesting, and I believe the Prime Minister, because he stood up at the dispatch box and said it, and all ministers, when you have the huge honour to serve in Her Majesty's government, you know that when you stand up at the dispatch box in the House of Commons, you have a duty to be accurate in what you say. And so I'm choosing to take the Prime Minister at his word. I'm not suggesting for a second that he didn't know the rules. I am accepting that he didn't know that the event that he was about to walk into was breaking them.
Mr Heappey, can I ask you a question? As a minister, as an MP, what do you think, and this goes for all MPs and all ministers, what do you think is the one thing that you need from the members of public right now, from the electorate? What is the one thing you need from them, the most important thing you need from them in order to be able to do your job?
Well, all
Everyone's
politicians...
shouting it at home, Mr Heappey. Want to hear it from you. Everyone's shouting the word at home. What do you think is that one thing that you need from the members of the public right now, at all times?
Well, the thing that you need from the members of the public is consent to serve as their government and their trust that you, as members of government, are making good decisions that are in their interests.
And do you think, right now, that the members of the public and your constituents trust Prime Minister Johnson?
No, my mailbag tells me very clearly that they do not.
OK, so then how does he regain... I mean, it's almost impossible. If we don't trust the leader of this country in the middle of a pandemic, when he's about to tell us about more restrictions or less restrictions, he's in charge of almost every part of our lives. We don't trust him, is what people are telling you. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think what we have to do is, firstly, if you don't take the Prime Minister on the basis of what he said in the Commons the other week, then hopefully Sue Gray's report will answer whatever questions you have. And everybody in Parliament and in government is wanting to see what that report concludes. But I would also reflect that the Prime Minister is steering our country through a time of incredible insecurity and instability globally. There were missiles launched from Yemen at Abu Dhabi the other day, and that is a concern for security in the Gulf. There are hundreds of thousands of Russian troops massing on the borders of Ukraine. That is a grave concern for security in Europe. There is a global economy that is struggling to awaken after the pandemic, and that is causing inflation and therefore cost of living concerns for millions of people. And there is still the pandemic, as well as we have navigated.
And you're absolutely right, Mr. Heappey.
Now, I see a Prime Minister that is making, across all of those things,
unfortunately,
the most grave things a Prime Minister does, a Prime Minister that is making the right decisions.
Yeah, but the Prime Minister's in grave trouble, Mr. Heappey. It's not just the people who are getting in contact with you from your constituents who don't trust him. We understand that we may reach the point where 54 of your own colleagues, backbench MPs, don't trust him to the point they don't want him to be the leader anymore.
Well,
His authority is crumbling away. He was told yesterday by a political editor that his explanation, which you've defended in the House of Commons, was ludicrous and silly, and that he's taking the mickey out of the British public. His authority is crumbling just as the trust has.
Well, I'm not sure that his authority in his capacity to take the very difficult decisions that need to be made right now is crumbling, because what I see as a Prime Minister in the meetings that I attend and in the meetings that I read the minutes of is a Prime Minister making very, very serious decisions, delivering for our country, bringing us through the pandemic in better shape than almost any other developed country. Our economy is bouncing back quicker, and at the same time making profound decisions around our national security and how we work with our allies to respond to a major threat. Now, that is what I see, and I think that the Prime Minister continues to go about that work very successfully. I just ask colleagues in the House of Commons who are, like I am, very, very concerned about the views of their constituents, who are our boss, really. They are the people that we work for. They are the people who send us to Parliament. But this doesn't feel like the time to be changing Prime Minister.
But you've just admitted those people you call the boss don't trust the Prime Minister. And they are the boss. And you've admitted they don't trust him. And if they are the boss, then that's the person you should be listening to, not the Prime Minister.
Well, my hope is that if Sue Gray's report comes back and reflects the explanation that the Prime Minister gave the other day, and I don't know whether it will or it won't. There are, as we heard yesterday, plenty of people who are willing to give evidence to Sue to say something very different. But she is inscrutable in the way that she does her business, and we should wait to see what she comes back with. And then people like me have got a job of work to do in order to explain to the British public that right now there is a Prime Minister and a government that is getting on with delivering on their priorities, that is getting on with dealing with quite profound national security challenges, is getting on with dealing with a very challenging economic situation.
You'd want to hope so, yes.
Can we just clarify one thing? And a lot of you come on and talk about Sue Gray's inquiry. It makes it very clear to the public, it's not an independent inquiry, though, is it? She's a civil servant who reports to the Prime Minister, and all she can do is report facts. The person who will decide the punishment on the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister himself. That's true, isn't it?
Last time she did one of these, it led to a Deputy Prime Minister having to leave post. I think that was the role Damien Green was in at the time. So if anybody is trying to suggest that Sue Gray is some sort of patsy, they're picking on the wrong woman. She is formidable.
But, you admit it's not independent, though, is it?
Well, I wouldn't want to be investigated by Sue Gray. Okay. She is very independent. She is fearless and utterly inscrutable. And I think, frankly, she's earned the right to be regarded with a bit more respect than your question implies.
OK. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Heappey, this morning.